Well, at the risk of sounding redundant, welcome, 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 all of you. Welcome, welcome. It's great to have you here this beautiful morning because it is not our usual service today, but a service of recognition. The 90th anniversary of this chapel, dedicated in September of 1927. My, how time flies, does it not? Feels like we just moved in here yesterday. So it's what we're going to do is try to honor not only the spirit, but as much of the liturgy of that dedication service that took place 90 years ago. And before we set our clocks back in 90 years, I've got some relevant comments for the year 2017. And that is a reminder that this is our Activities Fair Sunday, an opportunity for everyone to circulate during coffee hour. By all means, grab your coffee, go outside on our patio, and just see what the church is offering in terms of fun activities, in terms of social opportunities, and also possibilities to serve in our social justice commitment, which has been with us since I think this church was founded in 1891. Please pay particular attention to three areas of social justice. Of course, every table is invaluable, but if you're just to push the social justice tone a little bit, we've got tables for sign-ups if you want to help volunteer for the refugee resettlement program. Where this church works together with IRC, International Rescue Committee, to furnish apartments for all refugees that come into Salt Lake through the IRC. Then we have an opportunity to register for helping us provide meals for the homeless teens at the shelter provided by the Volunteers of America on 9th South and 4th West. We've had a very successful first year. We have a number of teams. The requirement is actually that you serve there once every 4 months. That's how many people are interested, but we need to replenish our supplies to continue serving the homeless teens. And then we have a new partnership, and that is with Planned Parenthood. Wonderful opportunities for this church working with Planned Parenthood, and after the service, Di Johnson will be happy to take your name on several levels. One, this sounds so rinky-dink, but it's really more valuable than I can explain now, to be an ambassador for Planned Parenthood. As we all know, they are so precarious in this particular administration, and here's a chance for us to help solidify what they're all about. And they are also providing training for women in general, looking for women in this congregation to teach a sexual, what kind of a course? Yeah, sex education course for women who are currently in jail. And Di Johnson can fill you in a lot more with what that program is all about. Also want to point out that we do not have a chalice here today, not because someone stole it, but because the chalice actually did not become a part of our religious movement until 1939. And so it would just be painful to be so, disoriented if we had the chalice. So no chalice, and we're going to now go back in time, the spirit. I want everybody to think 1927. Wow. Welcome into this house of love and justice. Enter into the brotherhood of holiness and health. Come and ye shall know peace and joy. Men come to be builders by building, harp players by playing on the harp. Exactly so, by doing just actions, we come to be just. The path of the just is as the shining light that shineth more and more unto the perfect day. So may we open our service of dedication, our first time to gather in this new house, by please rising and singing the doxology. Please be seated and join with me in the responsive reading. We are builders of a beloved community. Each has a part to play in its construction. No one is so poor in gifts and powers as to be unable to aid. It is the offerings of all that will make this ideal community possible real. A church is a society bound in bonds of unity for the great ends of humanity. It is a community seeking to fashion a pattern after the ideal. Its organization and building are for the progressive purposes of the eternal good. They are the outward forms of its inner life. We come together this day to dedicate the work of our hands. To consecrate to the worship of God and the service of man, our church home. Here let us live together in the love of truth. Here let us give ourselves to mutual helpfulness. May fellowship bear rich fruitage in this place. May life and love have the same communion cup. No cause serving the common good shall suffer for the lack of our support. Nothing shall languish that needs our help. Then, brothers of the liberal way, take on the courage of the torchbearers of the race. Renew your strength to remove the fetters of fear and superstition from the mind of man. Make him free to fulfill his own destiny. Make him glad for the sharing of sympathy of his fellows. Fill his heart full of the blessed hope of a beloved community. To this end we dedicate ourselves.
Like those strong men of old.
Well, I do think that our choir rather enjoys their new surroundings here. You sound absolutely wonderful, as though this house has just been waiting for you to lift its spirits with your beautiful voices. Thank you so very much. And choir director, they do sound splendid this morning in this new church, do they not? Yes, I think it's just that's great. I'd like to share the first reading. Lessons from the Old Testament. First Samuel chapter 25, verse 6, and then First Kings. And I've selected these two Old Testament verses for our reading this morning in order to really celebrate this new house. So from 1 Samuel 25 we hear, "And thus you shall greet him. Peace be to you, and peace be to your house, and peace be to all you have." It makes me think a home is a wonderful thing. Something that can be a peaceful haven, but it is something that you need to work in order to achieve. Allow God, I say to you, allow God to guide you in how to establish a home and allow your home to become more peaceful each and every day. And so in this vein, I pray that our religious home here in Salt Lake City will serve us all as a peaceful haven. And secondly, we find in 1 Kings chapter 8, "I have indeed built you an exalted house, a place for you to dwell in forever." Well, I don't know if we will dwell in this house forever, but let's do our utmost to maintain this house for years and years to come. May this house be filled with love, memories, grace, and peace. May we join together, please, in a spirit of prayer at this time. Into this house of light, we come to seek that which is just and to find that which is good. And here we remember those whose lives are darkened by greed, the greed and wrong of others. We have not purged the commerce of our times of those harsh ways that thwart the hopes and dreams of many. In this house of peace, we remember wars and rumors of wars. We have made but feeble efforts to truly understand the peoples of the world and to foster peace among the nations. So in this house of joy, we remember all sorrowing and troubled folk. We would not ourselves be glad except as we seek the blessings of abundant life in body and spirit for all our fellow man. Let us here be gathered into a common power of goodwill, which shall issue in lasting peace and larger right. Amen. announcements seem to follow us everywhere, even as we come into a new house. There will always be announcements, but I will just limit them to this morning because we have so much to do at our dedication ceremony. First announcement is that we're going to have our very first social gala next Saturday in our spiffy, brand new Elliott Hall. We'll be honoring two members who have given so generously during our building campaign, Vivian Strange and Roy Porte. But a word of caution. We may need to moderate our alcoholic consumption. Last month, and I'm sure you have all read this and are deeply concerned, law enforcement has introduced a new mechanism that measures the alcohol level in your bloodstream. Whew. It's called, as you know, as you read over and over again, it's called the drunkometer, and it can get you into a whole lot of trouble. You'd think that this device was invented just to upset Unitarians. I really think so. But it is what it is, so come next Saturday, let us drink as though we were civilized people. There will be a vigil held on Wednesday night at the Capitol to mourn the execution of Sacco and Vanzetti. Their denial of clemency, in spite of the U.S. Supreme Court Justice Felix Frankfurter arguing brilliantly for their innocence, should move you all to attend this outpouring of grief and the need to ensure justice in our nation. And finally, next Sunday, following this church service, it's going to be a fun time. I hope as many of you as possible will be able to attend, and be sure to bring the kids as we take a trip to the airport here in Salt Lake to view the Spirit of St. Louis. Charles Lindbergh's plane is going to be on display for all of us. It's going to be a fun outing. Of course, it was the first ever monoplane to cross the Atlantic, and here it is now in Salt Lake City. So you may want to pack a lunch, and we'll meet up outside of the church next Sunday following the services. Now, before I ask for the offering, I want to plant a radical seed in your minds, and that is, as the play is being passed, just kind of pretend that we're maybe 50, 75, 90, 100 years into the future, and do give what the dollar value you think may be at that time. But, the offering will now gratefully be received. We're going to take our second reading this morning from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10, verse 5. And I hope we find therein a reminder of our duties to be performed here in this house. We read in the Gospel, "Whatever house you enter, first say, 'Peace be to this house.'" A new home is a chance to create a peaceful haven for you and your family. We have this opportunity now in our new home, and a chance for us to find peace and make peace and spread peace to our family, and of course understood in the context of a church community. Our family is each and every one of us. We are family here who come together. May God bless us all with peace from the first day we have moved in until the last day we are fortunate to live in this house. A new home can be exciting. We feel that. It can also bring stress. Find ways to make it peaceful, and find ways to glorify God in this house. Allow him to carry out his work through us here in our new house. May we say amen as we end the second reading. Don't you just love the smell of fresh paint in our new house? This house built for the safekeeping of liberal ideals and principles. I am so proud of the miracle we have wrought in creating this church with its architecture inspired by our New England heritage. We can only hope and pray that this meeting house will enjoy tremendous longevity and that future generations will feel the same pride and joy as we feel today on this beautiful September morn, 1927. Our beginnings were humble. Holding our first service as a new church, Salt Lake City, February 24th, 1891. That first service was held at the Walker House on 246 South Main Street. We soon left Walker House to hold our services at the Salt Lake Theater, 100 South and State Street. Financial difficulties drove our congregation next to the second floor of the Johnson Pratt Drug Company on 44 South and Main. Then in 1898, we moved yet again a little bit on the west side, 28 West, 300 South. Well, this nomadic life was unsuitable for gaining any religious traction, so finally, under the leadership of the Reverend William Fish, a lot was purchased in 1903 for $6,500 at 138 South, 200 East. Construction then cost us $9,749. Oh, those were the good old days, don't you know? Now, most of us here remember the place because we stayed there until just last year. Now, it was fortuitous that we were able to sell that building to the Trinity Baptist Church, God bless them, and we used the sale of the building to build this beautiful church. And we received so much help from Vivian Strange and Roy Porte, who each donated an astounding $5,000. And then the American Unitarian Association contributed to us another $20,000. And members of this congregation gave so generously throughout the building campaign, and I just want to stop long enough to say thank you to all of you. We will always remember the last few months as this building was being completed, and we met at the Ladies' Literary Club on South Temple. They were gracious to host us, but probably as relieved as we were when we departed for our new house, our new haven here on 1300 East. You know, we talked about this a lot, but we did follow ultimately the advice given by the American Unitarian Association that new Unitarian churches should locate closer to university campuses with, the university's commitment to strong intellectual pursuits, and that was preferable to staying in or building new churches in downtown areas where pedestrian traffic is often questionable. So here we are. We couldn't get any closer to the university if we tried. Just right here on the next block on 500 South, the University of Utah, through the generosity of a gentleman named Robert Rice, has almost completed now its football field capable of holding 20,000 people. Wow. The first game has already been scheduled for October 1st against the Colorado College of Mines. And I heard rumors that when the stadium has its official dedication on October 22nd, Prince Gustav Adolf of Sweden will be present. So we will be mighty close to royalty. It's be wonderful. I can't wait. Now that stadium, if you missed the figures in the paper, the stadium cost the university $133,000. A figure I find almost inconceivable when squandered on sports. I fear our nation is leaving the life of the mind and turning to sports, as everyone, except I hope we Unitarians, everyone across the country is going crazy about this baseball player named, Babe Ruth, I think. People are talking about 60 home runs from this one man, and I say that's why he is earning a higher salary than the President of the United States. This is sheer lunacy. Our nation's devotion to sports is completely out of line, and I think you'd agree. Now, fortunately, we in Salt Lake are not tempted to follow baseball that carefully, since we do not have a professional baseball team here, and I hope we never will. May this great city be spared this nonsense and continue with its cultural evolution, and also filling our precious, beautiful wide streets with stunning new buildings, such as our friends at the Masonic Temple did just this year. They have now completed their new home on South Temple. It's a fine display of Egyptian revival architecture, a bit too splashy for my taste, but, I am happy for them as we each begin to look forward as we contemplate the future from our respective homes. It's a great time to be alive in Salt Lake City. The Capitol Theater, bought by our mayor, of course, Louis Marcos, has expanded. He's expanded that theater to 2,260 seats. I know, not quite enough for football, but the Capitol Theater will be packed now that our mayor has installed the amazing Wurlitzer organ. But I wonder, this is really between us, I wonder how wise his investment will turn out to be, because I'll tell you, and you may have heard the same thing, rumors that we are going to have talking pictures within 2 years. So much is happening. What a great time to be alive. We no longer need to travel to faraway places to purchase lovely jewelry. Why, the O.C. Tanner Company has just opened their business here in Salt Lake. We wish them every success, and I look forward to shopping there myself. Now, we find ourselves today on the cutting edge of a business I admit I don't really understand. But I know we're all excited for this local kid, a BYU grad by the name of Philo T. Farnsworth. He has completed the first electronic television transmission. It's a puzzle to me, but it's supposed to open up a whole new world. I don't know. I don't think that even young Mr. Farnsworth quite gets it himself. Why else would he have telegraphed one of his investors, George Everson, with his famous 4 words, "The damn thing works"? Farnsworth seemed as surprised as everyone else. Television, let's see where this goes. I just don't know. Sometimes I actually think we are progressing too quickly. Now, you may have read with the same curiosity as I that Universal Studios has just activated a Walt Disney film short called Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Now, I have not a clue about all the hype describing this potential, especially since they boast that Oswald the Rabbit will soon be superseded by a mouse, they say, a mouse. What's the point? I don't get it. Somebody explain to me, what's the hubbub about this mouse taking over Universal? I don't get it. Now, one of the great controversies of our time And I hope our church forms a discussion group dedicated to this very topic. And in fact, I hope it'll be done the next week or two, because it's a topic that affects us all very personally. Now, obviously, I'm referring to Dr. Morris Fishbein, who wrote a lengthy article last month for the Journal of the American Medical Association about the American obsession with losing weight. Now, I've actually, gone on a bit of a diet myself, but now Dr. Fishbein says that the dieting craze, he calls it a craze, is the menace of an anemic nation. Dr. Fishbein claimed, and I quote from the good doctor, "If the false gospel of unscientific dieting continues much longer, the United States will become a nation of weaklings and anemic, lacking in both physical and mental force." So, I'd like to propose then, for the sake of keeping America strong, that we offer large portions of apple and cherry pie during our coffee hour here. Our first minister here, the Reverend David Utter, delivered a sermon, my goodness, it's now some 35 years ago. The sermon was on the demands of the times on the church. So as we gather here this morning on this auspicious occasion, dedicating our new religious home for future religious liberals who haven't even been born yet, it would be worthy of our while to examine the times we live in today, scrutinize them carefully. What's life like? September 1927. We need to do our best to infer the demands that will be placed upon our generation, and of course those generations still to come. We learned just this summer that President Calvin Coolidge will not seek another term in office in next year's presidential election. This came right after he dedicated the astonishing sculptural feat in South Dakota called Mount Rushmore. I guess he figured there was no room for him on this place, and so he decided not to pursue the presidency for another term, for which liberals can be rather grateful. But I hope our whole nation learns a lesson from Silent Cal, that a pro-business, conservative politician does not deserve to occupy the White House. His tax cuts and call for small government will only set us on the road to ruin. And it remains absolutely incomprehensible, I think, for every thinking American, that our president actually rejected the U.S. membership into the League of Nations. How could he do something so foolish? Perhaps he's too busy imposing higher tariffs on imported goods, ostensibly to protect American industry, and so he has overlooked our crucial role in the world at large. I can't imagine our country that it will ever again elect a president so fixated on tax cuts and limiting the role of government. I cannot see that happening. These policies will only lead to a vile economic depression. Now, our nation is in desperate need of our liberal principles, the principles of inclusion regardless of a person's race. We are reminded yet again of the scourge of racism preying upon our country when both the governor of Indiana, Edward Jackson, and the mayor of Indianapolis, John Duval, were indicted just a few days ago on felony charges of corruption. And they are both members of the Ku Klux Klan, a disgrace to the state of Indiana and an embarrassment to our whole nation. Race relations continue to haunt our nation's goal of making democracy accessible to all of its people. But as we well know, the KKK is not confined to the South. In fact, they have been marching in our streets in Salt Lake City since 1921. And we can now surmise that our Salt Lake County Sheriff, Gordon Stewart, was a member of the Klan, as 11 of them showed up at his funeral in 1922. We've even had a lynching of a Negro man down in Carbon County, a fellow by the name of Robert Marshall. No one was convicted. So I urge you, our congregation, to get really involved in pressuring our Utah legislature to enact anti-mask laws in order to target the KKK specifically. As liberal thinkers, we need to put our beliefs into actions. I also feel the need to express a great and troubling concern that I have. Probably not everyone shares it at this time. But my concerns center on the news last month, the news that came from Germany. 3 weeks ago, in the city of Nuremberg, 80,000 Germans attended a rally to hear the leader of the Nazi Party, a fellow by the name of Adolf Hitler. Now, by all reports, Hitler is basing his campaign to strengthen the Nazi Party on spewing hatred for, at least as the translation has come to our papers, spewing hatred for non-pure Germans, whatever that means. Now, part of me says that this fanatic, like most fanatics, will soon be nothing but a passing phase, perhaps, if he's lucky, a footnote in history. But I'll tell you, I am concerned at this moment. So many people in Germany, frankly, they show signs of blindly following this man, probably because he reflects their own loathing sentiments directed mostly against the Jewish people. Now, yeah, we certainly have our own problems here in this country, but I would like for us to pay particular attention to the formation of this new troubling political party in Germany, a party, let me just say, based on hate and blaming Jews for the poor financial condition of the country. Hitler is circulating all kinds of conspiracy theories, and we need to have rational responses before, this all gets terribly out of hand. Now, like any generation of people, taking a moment to look squarely into the future, we see both light and darkness. And we must remember to take great joy from the light and remain vigilant in times of darkness. This house, our house, the house for Unitarians today and Unitarians in the future, this house will face huge demands to keep our country just and the world safe and peaceful. And I will tell you, as a minister of this congregation, there is no greater privilege than to serve a congregation whose ideal reflects the need to be kind towards our neighbor, be they the neighbor next door, or in Carbon County, in Indiana, or frankly anywhere in this wide world of ours. We pray for strength that we meet the challenges ahead, and that future generations will rise to the task of preserving the great democratic ideals of our nation. This house is dedicated to great conversations, stimulating the imagination to think how we can proceed differently in this world of rather tenuous human relations. And furthermore, this house is dedicated to action, committed to resisting all efforts that impinge on the freedom of any of the people who together make this a great nation. Look at one another, for ultimately we are the ones. We are the ones to ensure that this house be strong and that this house set an example for future Unitarians, how they must serve the ideals of liberty and equality if they are to be worthy of worshiping in this magnificent house. God bless our new church. Amen. Can we conclude our dedication ceremony turning our beacon hymn books, please, to number 189. As we conclude our service of dedication for this house, may we rejoice in the dreamers in every land and age, whose undying faith has woven a fadeless tapestry of hope, wherein we behold a pattern of the better world yet to be. And may this very house, be a house for dreamers. Amen. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you, the whole choir, for helping add to just the special delight of going back in time some 90 years. I tell you truthfully that David and Jenny and I had a lot of fun piecing the ceremony together in music, in message, and of course, just graphically. And thank you all very much for being a part of the ceremony. Let me remind you that as we grab our coffee and go outside to look at the activities fair and all the wonderful opportunities to get a little further involved with this church, just take a moment and just realize and maybe privately thank our forebears of 90 years now, 90 years ago, who gave us this splendid gift. You know, raise a cup of coffee to them and let's say thanks, and we're going to do our best to maintain this building that they really did sacrifice a great deal to build. So thanks all very much. Let's get our coffee and conversation.